Welcome. Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from psychologist Lev Vygotsky. Seriously, his work completely flipped the script on how we understand one of the most basic things we do, learning. So let's just start with that question. How do we actually learn something new? I mean, really think about it for a second. Is it just you, a book, and a quiet room? Or is there something more going on? We have this picture in our heads, right? The lone genius, locked away, having a eureka moment all by themselves. But Vygotsky, he came along and said, nope, that's not how it works. He argued that learning is almost never a solo act. It's fundamentally social. It's something we do together. Okay, let's get into it. To really get what Vygotsky was talking about, we have to start by looking at this learning zone he mapped out. It's like the arena where all the real growth happens. This right here is his most famous concept, the Zone of Proximal Development. Yeah, I know, the name is a mouthful. We'll just call it the ZPD. But don't let the technical term fool you. The ZPD is basically the learning sweet spot. It's that perfect place where our brains are challenged just enough to stretch and grow. So the ZPD is really made up of 3 parts. The first part is easy. It's everything you can already do all by yourself. The third part is the stuff that's just way too hard for you right now. But that space in the middle, step 2, that's the ZPD. It's what you can't quite do alone, but you can do with a little guidance. That's the magic zone where real, lasting learning takes place. All right, so if the ZPD is the place to be for learning, then who gets us there? And what tools do they use to help us out? Well, that brings us to the mentor. Vygotsky had a great name for this guide, the More Knowledgeable Other, or MKO. It's such a simple but brilliant idea. An MKO is literally anyone who knows more than you do about the specific thing you're trying to learn. They're the person who helps you cross that bridge into the ZPD.
And here's the key part. Your MKO doesn't have to be a professor with a PhD. Not at all. It could be a teacher, sure, but it could also be your mom showing you a family recipe, your friend who's a total pro at a video game, or even a really well-designed piece of software that walks you through a new skill.
So how does this MKO actually help? They use something called scaffolding. It's a perfect metaphor. Think about construction. The scaffolding supports the building while it's being built, and then it's taken away. In learning, it's the exact same idea. It's temporary support that's there only as long as you need it. Let's make this real with a jigsaw puzzle. A child is getting frustrated. The father, the MKO, doesn't just do it for her. First, he scaffolds by showing her a strategy. Let's find all the edge pieces first. Then, maybe he hands her a piece and asks, where do you think this one might go? As she starts getting the hang of it, he pulls back, letting her make the connections herself. That's perfect scaffolding. The support slowly fades as she becomes more competent. Okay, now we get to what Vygotsky thought was our greatest psychological tool. It's something we use every day, but he saw it as the very foundation of how we think. We're talking about language. Vygotsky realized that our relationship with language changes as we grow up in 3 really interesting stages. First, when we're toddlers, it's all social speech, using words to talk to other people. Then around age 3, we start doing something fascinating, private speech. We talk to ourselves, out loud. Have you ever seen a kid building a tower, muttering, okay, the blue block on top? That's it. Finally, that outer monologue doesn't disappear. It just goes inside. It becomes our inner speech, that silent internal dialogue we all use to think and plan. And Vygotsky himself nailed it with this quote. He saw that private speech, that talking to yourself, wasn't just some weird kid habit. It was this crucial moment where language and thinking actually fuse together. It's how we learn to use words to steer our own thoughts. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. So to really see why Vygotsky was such a game changer, it helps to put him side by side with another giant in the field, Jean Piaget. They looked at kids and learning and came to some very different conclusions. Here's the showdown in a nutshell. Piaget saw kids as little scientists, exploring the world on their own and moving through these fixed, universal stages of development. For him, language was kind of an afterthought. But for Vygotsky, he said you absolutely cannot separate a child from their social world, from their culture. Language wasn't an afterthought, it was the main event. Learning wasn't independent exploration, it was a guided tool. This really boils it down to the core difference. For Piaget, you had to reach a certain developmental stage before you could learn something new. But Vygotsky flipped that completely. He said that learning, specifically social learning, is what pulls development forward. Learning is the engine, not the caboose. So, okay, this is a cool theory, but why does it still matter so much? I mean, this guy was writing in the 1930s. Well, it matters because his ideas are everywhere in modern education. I guarantee you have experienced Vygotsky's theories firsthand. Ever been in a group project? That's Vygotsky. Ever had a teacher pair you up with another student to help each other out? That's Vygotsky. The entire idea of a teacher guiding students through a tough problem instead of just giving them the answer, that is pure Vygotsky. His work is the bedrock of so much of how we teach today. So, to wrap this all up, here's a little toolkit you can use. First, always try to find that learning sweet spot, that ZPD. Second, don't be afraid to be a guide for someone else. Be an MKO. Third, when you help, use scaffolding. Give just enough support, not too much. And finally, encourage people, especially kids, to talk through problems out loud. It's not just chatter, it's thinking in action.
And I want to leave you with this question to think about. Look back on your own life. Who was that person, that MKO, that helped you learn something you thought you'd never get? Who was the teacher, the coach, the parent, the friend who gave you just the right scaffolding to get you across your own zone of proximal development? Once you start seeing those people, you start to see just how deeply social learning really is.